am so glad to be here with all of you listening and or watching for our very first podcast. Woohoo!
Yeah.
This is literally a dream of mine, and so I couldn't be more excited to be sitting here. And before we start anything, I just want to clear some space in our hearts and our minds. So let's all close our eyes. We'll take a nice big deep breath, and wherever you're at, if you're driving, please don't close your eyes. But let's just take a deep breath together. Take a nice big inhale in through the nose. Close your eyes. And let's just shift our minds to a space of learning, to a space of observing and soaking in all that we get to hear today. And can I invite you to imagine a sponge and just kind of put that at the forefront of your mind, and a nice big clean bucket of water. And imagine that you're dipping this sponge into a bucket of water and letting it absorb the contents of the bucket. And then take that sponge out of the bucket and just notice it in your hand. Notice the weightiness of it, maybe the overflow of the water as it drips between your fingers. And let's imagine that our hearts and our minds are just like that sponge, soaking in all the contents, letting it permeate every corner of our hearts and our soul, so much so that it overflows. Let's take 3 breaths in through the nose and out of the mouth. 2 more. Nice big breath in. 1 more breath in and out. And blink your eyes open. If your eyes are already open, you're here with us. And put on your seatbelts because you are in for a ride, for a really great time. And so without further ado, it is my privilege and my honor to introduce Michelle Pasos. She's a very, very special person to me, and she's been an inspiration to me. So thank you so, so much for joining us today. She's a mom, a wife, a professor, an entrepreneur, a teacher, a daughter, a friend, and so much more. And she's the founder of United Yoga and is currently teaching at the University of Laverne, Citrus College, and the University of Riverside. So it's such a privilege to have you here with us today.
Yay, thank you. And I'm your niece.
Yeah, and you're my niece.
Auntie.
Yes. So she calls me Auntie. You'll know why. So she holds an extra special place in my heart. So, all right. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. I gave you a little intro, but tell us about your family, your life, your personal life, all that good stuff.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so when, people ask that, it's such a big question, right? So I wrote a bunch of things down. Okay, so
tell us.
The first thing that came to my mind was I'm a little kid attempting adulthood. Like that's truly how I feel most of the time. I am the sum of multiple parts, and it includes all the past and future versions of myself, and I'm still discovering those. I am a child of God, a steward of Mother Earth, and I am a spirit holder. Capital S, spirit holder. I am an overcomer of rigid religious ideologies, and I'm a follower of Jesus as well as the stars. I'm a Capricorn sun, a Pisces moon, and a Gemini rising. So for astrology folks out there, they're going to know what that means. For Enneagram folks, I'm a number 2, so I'm the helper. For people who are into Myers-Briggs, I used to be an ENFJ, and I am an INFP now. So that's been really neat to also discover. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I am a social justice advocate. I'm an undercover creative. And then I am a Latina X from Southeast Asia because my mom is from the Philippines and my dad is from Nicaragua, but I'm also American, obviously. Yeah. So that's who I am in summary. Family, like you said, I'm a wife to Matt Pasos. He was my high school friend, turned to boyfriend for 6 years.
Yes.
Then 1 month of engagement, and then we've been married for 9. Yeah. So that is a journey of itself.
Been 9 years?
9 years. Next year is 10 years.
Wow.
Of marriage. Yeah. Together for longer.
Yeah.
And I count those longer years.
Yeah, they count.
They definitely count. They count. And together we have 3 kids. I got Kenji, Keanu, and Keely. And they are 8, almost 7, and 5 years old. And then, of course, we got pets and stuff. As you said, I'm a daughter, so my mom, has been a teacher and she's in retirement now, so she's a teacher of over 40 years. My dad, a pastor for the same amount of time, both retired. And I share that because obviously they have impacted me and molded me in so many ways. And I know that what I'm doing here today in this season of life is a combination of like being a teacher and a preacher,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So yes, I have 4 sisters, and with all 5 of us girls, there are 18 grandkids. So I have a really big family, and I love them. They're all near and dear to my heart. But I also like to include my chosen family. Like I have a huge chosen family of friends where we do life together, and their kids are like my kids too. So that is like
that firsthand.
Yes, that is my family. Like it truly, it is so true that it takes a village for sure. I would not be where I am today, be standing on my feet and well, if I didn't have community. And to me, community is everything. So you already shared a lot about my career life.
Well, there's more to it than that.
Yeah. Okay, so I got my master's in kinesiology and my bachelor's at Cal State Fullerton, which is your alumni as well. You got me my sweatshirt and my license plate when I graduated high school. And
both Roger and I are graduates.
Yeah, and so was Matt. Matt as well. So I actually was on trajectory to be a high school coach and PE teacher. So I started a credential program and got all the way to the field work. And then I was like, this is not what I want to do. So then I took a different direction. And then when I started to feel like confused about life, I was like, maybe I am supposed to. So then I got into another credential program, and I was like, maybe it's not PE, but science that I'm interested in teaching. And then again, I got all the way to the field work, and I was like, no, like I don't know why, but high school is not where I'm supposed to be. And so I ended up just moving towards higher education, and that's exactly where I was meant to be, and I love it so much. So like you said, I'm at all the different colleges. I was at APU for 9 years. That was the first place that I was at. And then I love sharing the story because it's really special. We had lived in San Dimas when we sold our house to really put a lot of our attention and focus on the yoga studio. We ended up moving in with my parents, my in-laws, and then at some point we ended up moving to Laverne. And we moved to 3rd Street, and my husband and I were walking down the street with the kids, and we passed by the University of Laverne, and they had this beautiful new building, and it's called the Randall Lewis Center. And it's all about like yoga, mind, body, and wellness is really what it's about. And Matt looks over at it and he tells the kids, look, mommy, that's where mommy's gonna work one day. And my husband's not a words of affirmation guy. So, and I'm a really mushy, like words of affirmation person. So like I got all emotional and was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, he had just like
he put that out there.
He put that out there for me. And I am not kidding. 6 months later, somebody reached out to me. And they said, we're looking for somebody to do a teacher training program here. And I had been running teacher training programs for the last few years, both the 200 and the 300 hour. And so I got to create I did a course proposal, and I have my teacher training at the University of Laverne in the kinesiology program. I'm going on my 4th year there, and I love it. And I'm grateful because APU is where I was at for 9 years, and I also launched just a regular yoga fitness for life class. But because I did that there, it prepared me for the next step. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because there's somebody out there that's listening right now that's like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Like, you know, is where I'm at where I'm meant to be? And maybe it's not where you're meant to be forever, but it is definitely a stepping stone. And I truly believe that every single place that we're at leads us to the next. It's just like in yoga, right? If you're teaching vinyasa in a really creative, methodical way, you're going to get your students into postures, and each posture is going to prep them for the next one. And so
true.
I just like wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, that's so cool because it's like you had a road that you thought you were going to go down. You're kind of forging your way, and it was like, oh, maybe that's not going to be my road. I'm going to like go this way. So yeah, for those who are listening who are like, I'm going down this road, but I'm not sure. It's like, it's okay to like make a U-turn or make a left or a
Yes.
right and change the course. So
Yes,
that's
I
really
love
cool.
that. Yeah, get lost for a little bit.
Yeah. Like in the wilderness is okay.
Yes.
Like it's okay to be in the wilderness a little bit.
Not even okay, but like more than that, like necessary. I think like we need to turn off the GPS sometimes and really go there, because that's where we discover so much about ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's like my higher education side. And then as you said, I had the yoga studio. We closed our brick and mortar last year, but the business is still running and we're still hosting classes in our community, getting really creative. I love the idea of reimagining what small businesses can look like. And so we have been able to host classes at the park, at a coffee shop, and we're going to be hosting at another like cultivation music space where she's like, I want you to host classes here too. So it's really neat to be able to still offer classes for the community that are donation based and accessible. And then, of course, I run our teacher trainings and our retreats too.
Yeah. And where are your retreats right now?
So our bread and butter has been Joshua Tree. And so we've been doing that for the last 5 years. Last year, we did our first big long distance retreat in Yosemite, and it was epic. It was so amazing. And I remember receiving a message, a word. And when I say like I receive a message or a word, it's, you know, it's when there's this clear voice that you hear. Maybe some of you visualize it, and you know it might sound different for different people, and it might be like some people might have a different name for who it's coming from, you know. But to me, it's all one and the same. And it was just like, oh, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning of like where we're going. So
cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
And tell us like something fun about you. Like tell us something like that you enjoy. I know this is a little off our topic, but something that like gives you joy, brings you joy.
Yeah. There's so much that brings me joy. But I was thinking about like, oh, what brings me the most joy is storytelling. And storytelling is told in so many different ways. I love reading books, and right now I'm on a huge fiction kick. So I love, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the author, but she says that fiction is telling stories and giving information through imagination, where nonfiction is telling stories and giving information through like data and facts, you know? And so I love storytelling in that sense, but also like I love watching movies. I love watching TV shows, like even reality TV shows. Like I just love learning about people and their stories, like songs, the way people compose music, art. I just want to hear it all. And like, just like you said,
what are you binge watching right now?
What am I binge watching? What am I binge watching right now?
Or what has been your favorite binge?
Okay. Oh my gosh.
It's a hard. I'm sorry. I know this is off script.
Because there's just so many things. And I wanted to make sure that I'm answering this. Gosh, this is okay. So I just have to say, I love asking people like, what's your favorite thing? Putting them on the spot. But when it turns to me, it's really hard. Okay. Oh my gosh.
What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, right now, what's coming to my mind is a show that Matt just asked me to start watching. So I don't want to say that because it's like, no, that's not the show. Oh my gosh. Can you just like help me out? What are some shows out there right now? Like I want to say Ted Lasso, but like that's already done. Like
it's done, but that's a good one.
Okay, yeah, like I love Ted Lasso.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a binge watcher, but I think we like binge watched Yellowstone and Breaking Bad. That's way old school.
So that's the thing. Like I've watched all those shows. Yeah. Like just ask me any show, and I've most likely watched
so you just are a lover of binge watching. It doesn't even matter what it is.
Yeah, and it's not
old,
like
new.
People always ask me like, how do you do it? You know, and it's not like I'm sitting there doing it all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is gonna be one of those things where later on I go,
oh yeah, I know. And so what are you reading?
How about
right
reading?
Now,
yeah, okay,
because
I think that's where it is. Like, okay, this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm entering into a new genre of fantasy, and so I had students and friends tell me about A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Oh yeah,
have you heard?
I've heard of it.
Okay,
I haven't read it, but
I literally book 1 in 1 week, book 2 in 1 week, and I'm
No.
almost done with book 3. So I'm like in
Wow.
the thick of it. So it's
Okay.
been hard to like separate reality in
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
that, I think that's why it was hard for me to pick a show, because I've
Yeah,
just been it's
there's
all
so
been books.
many too. Like I guess books you can kind of like you settle into that for a while and like a you kind of can't stop reading it. It's like an addiction where like, binge watching you can watch like 2 or 3 and maybe on occasion you'll get stuck on something for a while, but
Right.
yeah,
With books, it's like you're in
yeah,
another,
you're in
because
it and
you're hearing the like
yes.
the narration behind it all, and like
Yes.
in their minds, and I just
Yeah.
love that.
All right, so for all those book nerds, we just totally nerded out on books. So
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have a word for this year, or what is
Yes.
your word for this year, and how has it impacted you?
Yeah, my word for this year was abundance. So it was really hard. As I mentioned, we closed our studio. I also mentioned that we had sold our very first home. So we poured a lot of time, energy, and finances into it. So the reality is like finances were hard. And so I was going into this year going like, okay, no, there's abundance out there for me. And I've had to really reflect on my limiting beliefs around finances, especially being a pastor's daughter and seeing so much done for the community and ministry for free.
Yeah.
So I've had to do a lot of work around that. So abundance is my big word, and I have received so much abundance this year. I like to say like the receipts, like there are so many receipts from God of like how God shows up and provides financially for our family, for our business, and so that's the
Could
big
you
word.
share maybe 1 or 2 of those ways that
Yeah.
like maybe an unexpected way that you have experienced abundance this year?
Yeah. So for one of the things is I teach my students to value their self-worth, right? And so I'd teach them how to do it and say it all the time, but then when it came to me, it was hard for me to do the same thing. But I was a yes person because of the season of life I was in before kids and all that. So I always said yes to opportunities, and it really served me well because I was able to really teach in a diverse and like a lot of different spaces, from teaching police officers at Glendora PD to teaching the opposite, boys in juvenile hall detention facilities, to teen moms, to like, suburban moms, pregnancy, like all that kind of stuff. So, but then I started to get burnt out, wasn't taking care of myself as I was being an entrepreneur and raising kids of my own. I had to start setting boundaries and saying no to things. So that is what actually helped me understand my self-worth and to really value that, is knowing like how unwell I was. And so no longer would I say yes to things just because either I don't want to let somebody down, or because I think like scarcity mindset of like, oh, what if this opportunity doesn't come up for me? So for example, it started when I was pregnant with Keely, and I had an opportunity to start teaching at Pasadena City College. And that was a hard one to say no to, and it was going to be for a teacher training. But I said no to it. I said the hard no, necessary no, and then a year and a half later, I'm teaching at University of Laverne. So it's like the
Down the
opportunity
street.
down
from
the
your
street, like
house.
way better. Pasadena would have not
Yeah.
been sustainable for
Yeah.
me whatsoever. It's a huge commute. So last year, when I got the opportunity to teach at UC Riverside, I don't even know if I should share numbers or not. Is that okay to do? Yeah, right?
Sure,
Okay.
whatever you want.
Okay. So they reached out and they said, yeah, we could pay you $100 per class. To me, I'm like, I have to commute out there. Also, like, I have done a lot of trainings and a lot of self-study. Like, I have my 200-hour, my 300-hour. I'm almost done with my yoga therapy. I've done kids yoga training, prenatal training, trauma-informed, social justice, like doula training, all the trainings. So
On top of having your bachelor's.
yeah, and masters.
and
Yeah, so it's
master's,
like,
right.
I'm like, no, I need to,
Yeah.
like, you know what? So I responded with total love and was just like, oh, okay. I unfortunately, I can't do that. That's not like my rate. And then they're like, well, what is your rate? And like, a little bit nervous, but I was like, oh, my rate would be $250 for the hour for the class. And they responded right away, and they're like, okay. And I was like, wait, what? And to me, I just felt like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
They're probably going to say no. And this helps me to know, like, that's not what I meant to do.
Yeah.
But then they said yes.
Yeah.
And then, so since then, like, I've been able to honor that with all of the things that I do. And so now I can actually charge higher for my services. Each time it's still hard to do it. Like, even with people asking, because people ask me for advice all the time. Like, when I was going to open up the yoga studio, I would reach out to folks and ask them, like, can I meet with you, da-da-da. And it was really sad because a lot of people didn't want to offer that. So when people come to me, I want to give them my services and give them, like, this is what you shouldn't do because, like, learn from what I've done, my mistakes. But also I have to, again, remember I need to honor my time. So, like, I have just recently started saying, like, okay, I have a consultation fee, you know?
And how crazy, like, when you put that out there and you said, no, this is like kind of with fear, maybe a little fear and trepidation, like, should I like put this number out there? You put it out there and that almost gave you the springboard to like, all right, this is my value.
This is my new number.
My new number. This,
Yeah.
and then it can go up from there. And it's like, it gave you the confidence to also, and the ability to have the boundaries. Like, I'm not going to
settle.
Yeah.
Settle for anything less.
I'm worth more than that.
And it came with a lot of meditation and a practice called bhavana. Bhavana is the Sanskrit word for, like, visualizing your desired outcome. And so I had a teacher. I have so many great teachers that I'm so grateful for. And she would say to, like, sit there and visualize those numbers. Like, and the numbers will come to you. Like, you'll feel it in your body. Like, if you say, like, okay, if you're teaching like a one-on-one, like, okay, $60. And if you feel like your body kind of like twitch and you feel some tension in your jaw, then you know, like, okay, no, that's not the number. Go up a little bit.
Yeah.
And you just kind of range like that.
Yeah. And that's such that like mind-body like connection, and being in tune with what your body is telling you is usually probably what you should go with.
Yeah. Exactly. And that has been a huge practice in itself. Yeah.
Oh, so good. We could sit here for like 2 hours and just talk about that alone.
Right. I know.
This year, have you noticed like a big moment of like aha, like an aha moment? You're like, yes, like this is like the turning point for me this year, or this is the thing that life taught me this big thing this year.
Yeah. It's a culmination of like the last several years. Like I said, I was in survival mode for so long. And so then when you come out of survival mode, you don't realize like how hard it was. And so my body took a toll on me for like a whole year. I was getting sick all the time, lots of injuries. So there's this verse, I'm going to butcher it. It's in the Bible and it's in Psalms, and it says like, he forces me to lay down in green pasture. And, that's exactly what God did, was like, I'm going to force you to rest and to know that you are still worthy without all of the doing. I come from a very, like, my mom is an incredible woman. She is a dreamer and an achiever. So I was taught we can do it all kind of thing.
And so you would call yourself maybe a recovering doer too?
Yeah, a recovering doer.
You just said that, I was like, I'm a recovering doer too.
Yes, a recovering doer for sure, and learning how to just be and to know that like it's okay to also just be. And so because of that process, I have been forced to face all of my shadows and to really get in tune with all of the voices, all of the stories, all of the beliefs and values. And so the last few years, I have been doing so much journaling and just so much learning of myself with all the writing. And I started to discover so much through my own storytelling with writing my own, write like my own poems. And I'm not, I actually like English was my worst subject. I was one of those straight A students all throughout high school. But English was always the hardest thing for me. And now it is the thing that like I'm drawn to as far as like I said, writing, storytelling, listening to all that. Like
so
books
look out for her book.
But so you asked, so the big thing for me was through that process, what came to me that was really clear was, have I even met myself yet? What if I haven't even met myself yet? Because I'm just learning so many things about myself and unlearning that I'm like excited, because I'm like, wow, I don't even know if I've truly met like the real me.
Yeah.
There's been so much social masking, and like my trauma response was to people please and all of that. So it's been really cool to
Wow.
be open to what
That's
if
super cool.
there's so much more that I
Yeah.
haven't even discovered about myself.
Yeah. Isn't that so true too, even of ourselves, that we like put these masks on for different social situations or life situations? And when you start to peel away those layers of yourself, you really notice like, wow, I don't even really know myself. Like I just realized the other day, like, I don't know that like gardening really brings me joy.
Yeah.
I'm like the magazine side of me that sees the pretty like, you know, the pretty vegetable gardens like is like, oh yeah, no, I love gardening. And I'm like, no, I actually don't. It
And that's
doesn't bring me
okay.
joy, and it's okay.
Yes.
But it is that like meeting yourself for the first time, because you kind of feel like you have to put these veils on, but we don't.
No.
And so like that's such a perfect like meeting yourself. That's like so poignant and so perfect.
And that's why I said, like, when I, with the Myers-Briggs, it was, oh, people would tell me you're an extrovert. And actually, I realized, no, I'm a hardcore introvert, even though I can have these kinds of conversations, and what I do for a living is really focused on holding space for people, teaching, you know, students and stuff. I get drained very easily, but I learned to numb those feelings that I was having in not just my heart, but my body, and to just keep pushing past it, to keep going. Like, that's what I learned to do. And so as a child, I actually kind of had more of like a only child kind of season of life, because my sisters are way older than me, like 4.5 years older. All three of them were more clunked together. And then my little sister is 5 years younger than me. So I spent a lot of time by myself in my own imagination world. And it was where I wanted to be. Like, I loved it.
Yeah.
Then I started going to school, and when things started happening, I realized, oh, this is who I have to show up as. This is how I'm going to survive here.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the ASB president. I'm going to be the captain of the basketball team. I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to volunteer, and I'm going to da-da-da-da-da-da, right?
Yeah.
And so,
All the different versions.
yes.
All the different,
and so
masks,
now I'm just going like, oh, actually, I need to have so much more time by myself with my writing. I started playing the piano again, and that brings me so much joy. Like, I just like being by myself.
It's so nice, huh?
Yeah.
For us introverts.
Well, you inspired me. You went on a trip by yourself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that is still one of my dreams to do.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go on a trip by myself.
Life-changing. I'm actually going to do it again very soon here. But yeah, it makes you sit with yourself. I encourage you to go to some place that you don't have a TV too.
Yes.
And really put away your electronics, because it forces you to sit and really kind of meet with yourself. And it was pretty crazy.
So
It was
cool.
really cool though. Yeah. And so like, how has all of these things that you've explained to us, because this is obviously a podcast specifically about purposed living and that action of purpose, what has maybe like, how has that shifted your purpose, or how you live your purpose out differently?
How has what shifted my purpose?
Like all the different things, all the different, like meeting yourself, all these different exploratory things about yourself, learning like, I wasn't going to be a teacher, I'm going down this road. Like, how has that shifted, even like having kids, and how's that shifted your purpose? Maybe where it was one thing at one point, and now you're like, no, I really feel like my purpose aligns with this and what I'm supposed to be doing.
So that's such an interesting question, because I know that you can find purpose in whatever it is that you're doing. So if I did go the route of being a high school basketball coach and softball coach, which was what I was doing, and taught PE, I could still live a purposeful life. I even still imagine maybe I am going to go back there one day. You know, so like I said, I don't know if I said this or not, but I was talking to a friend, and I told him like, oh, in my next lifetime, like I would go into the film industry, like just for fun. And what I meant by that is like, oh, actually, there's like multiple lives that we live within this one life. Who knows what we're going to do? Like, I am still very young. I know that a lot of people get afraid of getting older. Like, I'm almost going to be in my 40s. And that excites me to think about, like, oh, what are my 40s going to be like? What are my 50s, like 60s? I remember hearing the story of this 78-year-old woman who decided to start building orphanages. Like, we have an abundance, back to the word of the year, abundance of time. And so my purpose, like I know that I'm meant to just find purpose in whatever it is that I'm doing. And my purpose is to see people, to hold space, to connect with them in some layer of themselves and one of their koshas, and make them feel seen and loved and whole and complete as they are. Like,
and there you go. That's exactly why we had you on here. Exactly why I invited you, is because that is like why you are one of the people who I look to as like the space holder. And that has been such, I've seen it. I've seen the dynamics of that. I've seen how it's played out. I've seen how it's impacted. And so, yeah, that's exactly, yeah. And that is the thing, like with purpose, it's not like going to be the same for every single, like not season is such a weird word, but like for every
stage of your life,
of our life. Yeah. Like our purpose is going to look different at every stage. And so it's like being open to that changing, and that it's not like, oh, this is my purpose and I'm going to live it out and that's it.
Yeah.
But open to the idea of change, for that purpose to change and to grow and to manifest into something completely different that you would have never imagined. Like you thought you were going to be a basketball coach, and maybe you will be someday, but right now your purpose is the complete, like kind of opposite of that. Really.
Right.
So,
yeah. Like the lack of competition and more of, like everybody has a choice and an option. It's non-competitive.
Exactly.
But I think that I know the word that stuck out to me with what you were just saying is the openness. Having an open hand has been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned as an entrepreneur, is not trying to force things. I always use this, like the analogy of, little kids, those little toys where you put the shape, the right shape in it. And it's like trying to force a square into a triangle. Like I no longer do things like that anymore. And I just go, okay, God, this is what I'm going to do, and show me if it's not what's supposed to happen. I'm open to it. I don't cling and attach and grasp. And that, thankfully, that's from my yoga practice.
Yeah. Great segue into the next question, which was, how has yoga transformed your life and set you on your current path? I know that like you have been my inspiration for yoga. You actually were the one when I hurt my knee. You were like, come to yoga classes for free. I was like, okay, fine. What I'm doing right now is not working, so I'll try it. Yeah. And I was hooked. And then I did my teacher training with you, my 200, my 300 hour, and so many other opportunities that came out of United. And so I know that you pass on this legacy to your students and to those that are impacted by your teaching. And so how did yoga transform your life so that you were able to share that with other people so fluidly? Because that's really what you do, is you share it in this very fluid and authentic manner.
Thank you for that. It has taken time, and being aware of the evolution of my practice has helped me. So when I say evolution, like everybody enters into this practice at different points and in different ways. And so for me, it was all physical, right? Handstands, arm balances, like give that all to me. I'm going to go, I'm going to add this to my schedule of the doing, right? No time for Shavasana. Got to wrap up my mat and get out of here. Like what? Be still? No, I got to go. So I didn't do that for a long time. Then I stayed. One day I stayed, and then I kept staying. And I was like, oh, okay. This is actually helping me mentally. I started to find the verbiage for like, oh, anxiety is what I've been feeling in my body, And then it became an emotional practice for me. The first time I took Sean Korn's class, hip openers, 90 minutes. She held us in so many postures for long periods of time, but it was single leg pigeon on my left. that had me bawling. And it was the first time that I cried on my yoga mat, like uncontrollable tears. And so then I realized, like, oh, this is a time and a space for me to experience my emotions and let things come to the surface. And then it became this quiet place of spiritual connection to God, divine, universe, whatever you want to call it. And that's when I started to get really more in tune with that voice versus like, all the loud noise. And so because of the evolution of my own practice, I have been able to actually connect with myself on a daily more and take actions that are needed to stay connected, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when my teacher, she's my mentor, and she said, oh, so like, where are you feeling this anger in your body? And I was so confused by the question because I was like, what do you mean? I know I'm feeling angry, but she's like, but where? Where in your body? And so I didn't realize how, even though I did a lot of physical stuff, I got really good at numbing because I had a lot of different injuries and would learn how to ice and stuff. And I would sprain my fracture my ankle, and then I would just put a wrap on it and go play. Like, I learned to live with the pain and numb it out. So then that means I numbed everything out of not knowing where it is in my body. And now that's like one of my biggest practices is going like, oh, where am I feeling the sensation in my body when I'm feeling this way or thinking this way? Or maybe you say something that triggers me and our body gives us that information. So then now I know how to take more appropriate action.
Yeah.
So because of that, I feel like I get to offer that to my students, and that makes me gives me so much joy and fills my cup to see my students start to access that same those same tools at an earlier age.
Yeah. So for somebody who's like starting yoga and they're like, I can't lay down, I can't I can't do that, I can't like stop the like stuff going on in my head, what would you say to them? Like, how would you encourage them?
Well, I mean, this just happened yesterday with one of my students. We did a restorative class, and afterwards she came up to me and she said, and I saw her the whole time shifting her body, like just moving side to side, like she was restless. And she came up to me and said, I, for some reason, started crying, and I don't know why. And it was really neat to be able to first tell her, like, hey, guess what? You're human. There is nothing wrong with you.
Right.
You are so normal. Like, I used to be the exact same way. And again, time. It just takes time to be patient with ourselves and to have non-judgment. Non-judgment, ahimsa, is yoga's first ethical code of the 8-limb path. Ahimsa, I like to, the idea of non-harm, I like to flip it as like, okay, if it's non-harm, non-violence, what's the opposite of that? That's love, compassion, kindness. That's what Jesus was all about. Like, Jesus was all about love, compassion, and kindness. No judgment. And so when we can actually do that with ourselves, then we can embrace wherever we are in the process. So if you're not able to lie still in Shavasana, that's okay.
Yeah.
Don't.
Right.
Sit up if you have to. If you need to take your thumbs and brush them across each fingertip, all the way across and down the whole time, do that. Open and close your fists. If you need to keep your eyes open, then you do that. So like, yoga is meant to look different for everybody. So if you go to my classes, I just love, if you were to see my classes, it'd be the opposite of what you see on Instagram. Like, people are not moving in synchrony. Like, they are all moving in different directions. They're having different options, different variations, even all the way until Shavasana. So that's what I would encourage the person to do.
Yeah.
Just be patient with yourself, non-judgment, embrace where you're at, and do whatever it is that you need to do. Only you know what you need to do.
And it's like layers. It's like taking it in those like layers and being okay with where you're at. And then, next time you'll notice maybe you were able to sit a little bit more. You were able to like focus a little bit more. And so, that's what.
Or baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps.
Yeah, to get there.
I love that.
To get there, wherever there is.
Right, wherever there is. We're all figuring out where there is.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to kind of just transition into the real kind of meat of why you're here. There's so much that you already said. I'm like, I don't know how much more we could even like say. Like, so much has been just so many good things. But when did you begin your journey in understanding like the depth of what it meant to hold and create space for people? Like, when was that moment for you?
I was thinking about this and meditating and trying to go back into my, memory. And I realized, oh, it started when I was young. When I was a kid, I was a witness to a lot of vicarious trauma within my family. And then I also, obviously, we all experience our own trauma as well. And so when you